I'm not exactly sure what I should title this video, our story time. But in this video, I'm going to talk about why I don't work as a cosmetologist in the state of Louisiana. Why I kind of sort of gave up on the career path. So let's begin. Okay, so I did do a video about what made me start doing hair. It started with drawings. I would draw like women figures and the hair and stuff like that, and eventually I got into it started with my grandma. I would scratch her scalp, I would part it in different sections and use my comb and scratch her scalp. And at the time, Tina Turner was pretty popular back then, and so I would spike her hair up and we get a good laugh about that. And that was like the early beginnings. Then I would play with my sister's dolls. I would do their hair and stuff like that. So then it went on to purchasing mannequin heads. And one thing I used to love doing was doing roller sets. So I did a lot of those. I would go, there was a place called Sally Beauty Supply, not Sally, excuse me, that was called Beauty Mart in the Carrollton Shopping Center. I would go there and I try to wait till the coast was clear and try to purchase a mannequin head, which would usually be behind the counter, and the lady would have to go and pick which mannequin head. They had the white one, they had the black one. I would experiment with those mannequin heads and color them and cut their hair and things of that nature. And then eventually it got to the point where I did go to beauty school, and that happened because at the time I was doing security, I won't say where, and I had an incident where I had gotten exiled onto the night shift. And I figured, you know what, it's a pretty good time to try to do something that I would really like to do. And I thought that would be a pretty good career for myself. And while I was doing the security job, I was going to beauty school at the same time. And I went for the overnight class, which was what? I don't remember what time it was. But I had plenty of time after school, after work, to go to and do the program at night. The problem, well, in the evening, the problem was Saturdays. If I had to work Saturday and I would get off in the morning for like 7, then I had to be to class for like 9 or 10 or something like that. Or maybe it was 8, I can't remember. But if somebody came late or if they called out and I had to do an additional time in order to make it work, it was pretty difficult. I didn't get very much sleep on those days. Yeah, it actually was Katrina that interrupted my program. I ended up having to, we fled. I had to keep asking my mom over and over again because she wanted to stay. And we ended up going at the last minute. And luckily, the traffic wasn't as bad as it was when at the beginning. So I did have to stop or pause my program in order to flee for the hurricane. Then when we finally came back, it was the same school, but we did a different location, which was going on. But other than that, I graduated. And at that time, I wasn't doing the security thing. I was working at the grocery store. And after the grocery store, I had found the job just before it was time for me to graduate. And I remember being summoned to the office of the owner, they have a lot of family-owned groceries around here. So he was like, well, why would you sign up for the job if you want to leave after a certain time? And I was like, I don't know, you know. To be honest with you, I had failed the test like 2 or 3 times. It was the wet skateboard wet head. We have to put pin curls on one side, a barrel curl, and a long stem. It was a lot on one head. My mistake was that I was using the smaller head. I want to say it's a Deborah when I should have used a Sam. And I wasn't practicing as I should have. It was probably the only portion of the state board that I didn't do very well, and I had to take it more than one time. Yeah. Okay, so in this video, I want to talk about my experiences as a cosmetologist and why I feel like it hasn't been working out for me. Okay, so the first place I worked at was at Smart Style. It was my very first job straight out of cosmetology school, and I'd like to discuss that experience. Okay, so while at Smart Style, uh, I felt like it was a bit of discrimination in the fact that there were two older white women that were working at that salon, and at this time, they refused to do black clientele because they felt like they were comfortable and people were making complaints about them. However, I did mention this in a previous video that when I was working there, I had a lot of issues with the male clientele because they assumed that because I was a male, I'm automatically like know how to barber and stuff like that. And when I say barber, I mean taking somebody from a scalp haircut and making it longer on the top. When you graduate, well, in my experience, when you graduate from cosmetology school, they don't really teach you all of that. I mean, they teach you how to do certain haircuts, but this particular one, not so very well. And when you cut the people's hair and you're not really sure what you're doing, you leave what I call barcode marks in the scalp, and basically it's like lines in the head that show you that the haircut isn't very well blended, and it's pretty obvious. You don't have to be a professional to realize what that all entails, but you could actually see lines in the people's head. And like I said, it got to the point where I actually had to talk to the district or regional manager, whatever you want to call her, and let her know, you know what I'm saying, I'm having trouble with this, and at least can I get some help? Otherwise, I don't think I should be forced to do this. And she refused, and it was at that point when I had left. Okay, so that was my first experience at my very first salon that I worked at. Okay, so the very next salon that I worked at was at JCPenney. I thought I made it pretty big because it's very nice at JCPenney. When I first started working there, we had we had a different manager who was at the very top. I'm assuming it's like the store manager, what have you. And it was a white woman, and she really didn't bother us too much. And our actual salon manager was like a gay white man. And everything was pretty cool, but it was very slow and not very much business. At some point, uh, the white lady who was running everything at the very top, she was over all the departments in the whole entire store. She had left, and our store manager had left, which left us with no store manager, but they did replace the white lady who was a manager over the whole entire store. Okay, and when she left, they had a black guy. He came through, and he was pretty difficult to work with. We were very slow, and so he would make us do like cleaning and stuff like that wasn't in our job description. And I would typically work in the evenings, and so yeah, it was dead unless you already had a clientele. And some of the problems that I was having over there, when I would actually get people my card and stuff like that, they would actually have stylists that would say, "Oh, I'll bring your customer to the register and ring her up because you're doing another person," right? So when they get to the register, they actually give them their card. So you basically have stylists like, well, I guess I don't know. Somebody would say that's not stealing, but I mean, if you're offering your services and I've already done the person and the person was interested enough, they asked me for a card, and then you go behind my back and offer your card, it's kind of like stealing. And those stylists that did that, they actually had a large clientele to sufficiently, you know, uh, support themselves. However, I didn't. And I was just starting out, and you're already taking my clients. And the only reason why I found this out was because someone, a very good client, actually told. So yeah, the few clients I did actually, click with, they had people stealing. And another thing, they had another stylist. He was a gay white guy, and he was just really awful. It made it very difficult. He made little snide comments about my work set, my work skill, instead of helping people out. However, there was another one. He was pretty helpful, but I think he was on drugs. But he didn't last very long. So yeah, after that, they would have the top guy, the top manager. He would have us go downstairs on the first floor and pass out our business cards and stuff like that. Had people that were very uninterested. However, we did, try to give them the card. People would just ignore us like we weren't even there and things like that. Eventually, they had to close the whole entire shop down, and I guess they just replaced it with something else. But that salon is no longer open. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure the exact order if I went to the independent salon or another smart style, but I want to tell you about my experience at the independent salon. Okay, so I had responded to an ad on, I want to say Craigslist, because I don't know, I don't think I knew of Indeed back then, but anyway. And I ended up getting a job. It was with husband and wife ownership, and they had a little daughter, and they were like Hispanic and stuff like that, right? So I got to work in there, and then they added on another person, and she was an Asian woman, and she did like the nails and things like that. So all three of us were working together, all four of us. Wait, yeah, 2 and 4. 4 of us, right? So everything was pretty good, but the business was pretty slow, okay? So what had happened was we started putting flyers outside in the people's car, because this was like a strip mall, and we would put flyers on people's cars to try to drum up more business. At some point, the owner, the female, the wife, she wanted all of us to go, well, there was only 2 employees. She wanted us to go from W-2s to 1099s or something like that. Basically like an independent contractor. And the Asian lady, she was telling me, she says, don't do it. She said, she's not going to do it, and I shouldn't do it, and we should leave, if they're going to start doing that. Because if you do like an independent contractor, you don't get paid when it gets slow and stuff like that. So, and that's not what we agreed to when we first started. Okay. So what had happened was they eventually started having problems in their relationship. And so those two were arguing, and I assumed it was about cheating. The husband was cheating. And the reason why I say this is because I was actually in a salon. It was just me and the female owner. And I believe her little daughter was in the back and stuff like that. And this woman comes through. Now, I've seen her before because they had a lot of Spanish people clientele. And yes, even though my name is TigrePup on YouTube, I don't know anything about Spanish. I just thought it was a cute name. Well, I mean, I gave you the reasons why, but generally that's what I thought anyway. So, what had happened was she came through and she sat down, and I'm thinking it's about her hair that she was having an issue with. However, her hair didn't look colored or anything. And those two, the wife and the woman, they started arguing. And honestly, I thought they were going to start fighting, like physically fighting. It got so bad. And they're speaking Spanish. Honestly, I didn't know what they were saying. But eventually, we found out that the husband had been cheating and stuff like that. And what the problem was for me was I would go to work. This maybe, I don't know. I remember one specific occasion I made it to work and they weren't open. I hadn't gotten a call or anything to let me know that they had closed for the day or whatever. And so I just I was out of a job. Because I called and asked or whatever, and then they come to find out they weren't going to be open. So, it left me, unemployed. Okay, so the next place that I worked at was another Smart Style. And this particular instance, they had a lot more, we had a manager that was like physically in the salon working with us. And I'm going to tell you, the first time I met her, the first thing she said, are you sure he's a stylist? Because he doesn't look like a stylist to me. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I guess so if y'all are expecting females to only be stylists and stuff like that. And then one of my coworkers who worked with me for another place, she had to say, yeah, he worked with us and stuff like that. What are you talking about? He got a license, so I filled my application, whatever. And that manager gave me hell the whole time I was over there making comments about how I do hair and whatever. And it came to a point where she had did like somebody's hair, and it was a little girl whose hair was really, really long. Now I used to like blow the hair dry, but she liked to like put like a cap or something, comb the hair down and put a cap and sit underneath the dryer. But the girl's hair was so tangled, she was crying and everything. She could barely get through the girl's hair. And I didn't go and make fun of her, but she had no problem doing that to me. And another occasion, another coworker, she would call me Jenny Woman. And the thing is, what's so funny is she was a very husky built, mannish type of female. And I thought she was a lesbian, but she probably wasn't. But I really don't know, because I don't know what she does in her bedroom when I'm not around or whatever. But she called me a Jenny Woman, and then a customer came and told her that, she's a man. So, not to gloat or anything, but it just seems very funny how things came and turned around on people. But anyway, all of them gathered together, and I wasn't invited to go to another salon because the salon manager, she decided to open up a salon of her own, and they all gathered together. However, I stayed, and when I understand, she was drinking a lot, and she ended up losing the salon, and they all started leaving because, well, she wasn't managing it very well, okay? And eventually I ended up leaving that salon, and I didn't work for another salon for quite a while, and I'm going to talk about that next. Okay, so the next salon that I worked at was another independent salon. However, this one was actually in the mall. I won't say which mall, but I'll just say I worked in a mall in the food court. And I got in this job because at the time I was unemployed, and somebody I went to school with, she was a day student and I was an evening student. And she saw me on the escalator going down, and I was at JCPenney. It's a different JCPenney, okay? And so she saw me going down. We got to talking. I told her I was unemployed or whatever. And she was able to hook me up with the salon that she was working at, right? Which happened to be in the mall, in the food court. So we go over there. We talk to the owner, whatever. She seems like a nice lady. Okay? The first time when I had to do an interview, they were actually, all the employees and all the managers was on the internet, on Facebook, and she was talking about, one of the ex-employees was talking about that, saying that they were stuff, and I guess she was saying stuff on Facebook and stuff like that. I don't know, because honestly, I did sign up for the job, even though I was like, walking into this situation, but I really needed to work. And my friend, she was working there, so it seemed like it wouldn't have been bad. I don't know. But this was the place that I told you about that had fired me on my off day. And I have a video explaining all the details. But I mean, I felt like I didn't really belong there. They would have parties, but they would bring stuff, but they wouldn't tell me that they were having a party. So I didn't bring anything. Okay. So I always felt kind of left out, which honestly, I pretty much, I don't know. I'm not very, I'm friendly, but I'm not like a type of person that go out of my way to speak to people. But tell you my life story and stuff like that. And some people, I guess, take offense to that. But anyway, it came to a situation where I was doing a client's hair. She had really, really long black hair, and she was ethnically like Hispanic or Latin or something like that. And her mama, she didn't look like she was the same. Like she was like a white woman. What happened was she felt like I was taking so long to do her daughter's hair. What's so crazy is, I mean, if you're going from like dark brown, almost black hair, you have to go to a pale color. It takes some time, especially if the hair is long and thick, because you have to use smaller sections. and for the bleach to be able to penetrate all of those hairs. Eventually, I had to sit underneath the dryer to accelerate the process because it was taking so long, right? So I also had the receptionist. I believe she was like her boyfriend wouldn't really say anything, but I mean she always made comments. You know what I'm saying? Don't use a black card and stuff like that. And she'll say, just little stuff. I mean, like I said, it's been quite a while, but I definitely remember her saying that, like using a black card. So what card are you using? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so what happened was, I was doing the woman's hair, right? And apparently I was taking too long. Eventually the mall had closed and they had to let everybody out. However, I fumbled when it came to do the semi-permanent portion because I wasn't familiar with this particular formula of semi-permanent. I was accustomed to the one where you shampoo the hair and apply it to damp hair and it's liquidy and you sit underneath the dryer. However, this one was different. It was like a thick pasty one. It was so thick and hard, and I didn't know you can mix it with conditioner. I tried to use it straight, and of course I ran out. So I'm assuming that the color came out a bit patchy. She wanted like a green color. So that's what I did, and I'm not sure, but she probably came back. But that could have been a reason why I had been fired because, like I said, I had gotten a call on the phone talking about don't bother coming into work tomorrow, and the receptionist had offered me a ride, and I declined, and I actually walked home myself. Okay, I actually walked from one parish to another parish to get home because I didn't want to be in the car with her because I felt she was like, okay. So that was the next salon that I worked at. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you about my interviews that I had, and they kind of fell through because I did attempt to go back into the field. However, it just didn't quite work out. The first place that I tried to go back was Wondercuts. I never got a response from them, no matter what location I applied to. It just never came through. The next place is I did apply to Supercuts a couple of times. Eventually, I did get an interview. However, I just needed a chance to remember. What happened at Supercuts is I was telling the lady that I was intending on going to CNA school, and I guess she didn't like that. So I told her the situation, and she was working in a salon by herself. So I believe that's the reason why that fell through. The next place that I tried to work was a place called Sports Clips. No, this is not in a specific order. I'm just going from what's on my list here. And at Sports Clips, I did do an interview, and it was an all-female. Well, it's pretty much always an all-female salon. So I tried to work there, and I was at the interview, and so the lady was like, she let me do the haircut on the guy, which was like a walk-in client customer. So I did his haircut. He actually liked it. He actually gave me a tip. However, she went over my job to try to prove something. That's what it was feeling like. Even he was like, what is she doing? Because I asked for this, and you're cutting his hair even shorter. And it was like, it's kind of insulting to have somebody, for you to do your work and somebody to come in after you did what you did, as if to say that you're incompetent. That was the general feeling. However, I wasn't worried about it. However, I never got a call back from them. And so I just left it where it was because they're supposed to tell me when I'm supposed to come in and stuff like that. So I just let that go. The next place that I got an interview was a place called Dry Bar. And basically, they only do blow dries on people's hair, women, men, whatever. And they have different blow dry results, what have you. You can get a sleek straight, you can get a more body, or you can get more curled or whatever. They use curling irons and things like that. However, I was telling them I had already registered for CNA school. And they was like, okay, well, that they told me, they didn't tell me during the interview, because I'm thinking I'm going to get the job and I can do the CNA thing and I can do the job at the same time. However, I got a text in my text saying, oh, we have to attend the training sessions. And the training sessions was like 2 of the only 3 days that I was going to school for the CNA program. So that didn't work out. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, why would you have me go through all of that when you could have told me from the jump? You know what I'm saying? That I had a mandatory uh, testing training situation, and she was like, "Oh well, you can come back." You know what I'm saying? Well, maybe I could if I can't find a job as a CNA. I'll maybe give it a try. But as I'm thinking now, I'm thinking, I don't know. Okay, so I'm pretty sure you're wondering why I even create this video. Is to let you know that I haven't had much luck with the hairstylist jobs. And honestly, I've kind of given up because I feel like it's too many issues. You know what I'm saying? I can't just come to work. The pay is always very low, and I can't even support myself. And yeah, it just seemed like it's too much trouble. I wouldn't want to rely on a hairstylist job as full time income. I would only want to do it part time. And a lot of these places, they want you to do it full time. I'm not exactly sure why, because even that smart style situation I was telling you about, they kept sending me emails or texts or whatever, asking me if I wanted to work with them again. However, when I told them I would be willing to come back as a part-time stylist, they was like, no, we need you full-time, and that's the only option. And I was like, no, because at the time I was doing washing the cars, and I wasn't about to give up all my health insurance and the fact that I was making more money to go work in a salon and make minimum wage. And when I say minimum wage, I mean like $7.25 in Louisiana. Okay, so there's no kind of money. I wouldn't be able to support myself or pay any of my bills. Or if I did pay bills, I probably only have enough food for food. That's about it. And maybe even gas. It wouldn't even cover my bills. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, no, I wasn't about to do that. You're not going to hear me out here stranded. You know what I'm saying? So, and I know that they make accommodations for women because if they have children or other obligations, they're more than happy. I've seen it with my own eyes to make accommodations for them. However, for me, for some reason, I'm assuming it's because I'm a male. They're like, no, we're not going to do it. Absolutely not. You either take this or you don't. That's it.